Hello and welcome to the BNB show. My name is Brandon. This is Brendon, Seahawks Brendon Nelson. Welcome on back into the Hawks Nest, Brendon Nelson. How you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing pretty well. Life is still better than expected, I'd say, as a Seahawks fan right now. It's not everything we want it to be right now, but it's better than a lot of people expected.
It is indeed. This is definitely far surpassing, I think, just even the most aggressive of outlooks on the season, even after a particular loss like this. So we still feel pretty good as we do now head into this bye time. It's a good bye period, isn't it, Brendan? This is where you would ideally like to have your buys click in, would be right around the midseason mark, so that not too early, not too late, and you get that final last run. You can heal up the bones a little bit there to get on downhill through the back half of the schedule, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it looks like a couple of people in the chat are also saying there's something up with the microphone.
So, Chad, is there a problem with the mic? I'm hoping nothing's going down with it.
I can hear him. I can hear you fine, but I just want to jump on that now. I don't want to do a bunch of the show and then find out that something's wrong.
Yeah, so chat, let me know if we were trying to see if there was something wrong with the mic beforehand, and if there is, we'll just maybe have to figure this out. Also, the mic is being weird. All right, so maybe we do have to shut this down then. I don't know what's going on. It's weird that it's
okay. We have one person in chat saying Brandon's mic is good. I mean, I can hear you. It just sounds a little muffled.
Okay.
Interesting. So yeah, let's make sure we get that before we actually go through doing the whole show.
Oh, I think I see the problem here.
All right, now it has you on mute, so you probably have to go into settings and switch the mic you're using.
Check.
Okay, perfect. Wow.
Sorry about that, folks. Okay, we got it figured out. A little bit of a technical computer set it to my webcam mic all of a sudden. So yeah, okay. Strange. Okay, folks. Well, sorry about the deal. Welcome everybody in the chat here. Sometimes there's technical difficulties, but we got it figured out. Thanks for that. So yeah, it is a good time of the year, isn't it, Brendan? As far as going in at the midpoint right now in the bye, as we are, it's kind of ideal, you could say.
Yeah, I always like to have a late season bye week. The only kind of sort of downside is that we happen to be very healthy right now. Like if there was a game this week, the injury report would probably be very short because it was very short last week and we didn't suffer any major injuries in the Buccaneers game. So there's not necessarily anybody who's ailing, but we all know that probably pretty much everybody on the team is hurting right now. Yeah. They played 10 games. And when you think about that factor, it's always good to have a bye week somewhat late in the season so you can give those guys an opportunity to get better.
Yeah, and especially I think when you got rookies too, right, Brendan, where it's guys that are young who are not used to playing a full NFL season. This is the first time you always hear about that rookie wall that gets hit, and you wonder if maybe this will help them get around that just a tiny bit if that is potentially possible. It's a good point as far as the injury goes, but I think to your other point of that, it's the nicks and the bumps and the bruises you're getting that extra little bit of a week on that I think does kind of help you going into this area of things, especially as you do look forward on the schedule where things are looking. I don't know what word should I apply to this, Brendan, for the way the schedule looks as it's setting up for us in the future here.
It's not going to be the gauntlet that we necessarily thought, is it?
No,
the Rams have helped by being a terrible team this year. Obviously, that's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, if not for that, that's one that just looks better and better and better. And of course, the news is broken that Cooper Kupp does have a high ankle sprain, which does make me wonder. That does mean that he'll miss, I think, the first matchup, no doubt. But then it also makes me wonder if they're even going to have him come back. It's gonna be if he even comes back in that final game, because they play him at the very last one of the season.
Yeah, my theory is that, well, first of all, he's actually been put on IR, so we know for a fact he's going to miss the first game. The second game, I don't think this Rams team knows how to shut it down. I think they're always just kind of addicted to go, 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 go. So if he physically can come back, he will. But it's unless the Rams get completely eliminated from the playoffs, which is possible the way they're playing, I don't think they're just going to be able to turn themselves off. They just seem like they're always trying to go, go, go because they're desperate to win over that LA crowd, futile in effort though it may be.
Well, and they do have a lot on the line as well, right, Brendan? Because they've got a big bill due in the next couple of years for some of the contracts they've signed and some of the draft picks they've offloaded, as far as trying to maybe take most advantage of this season because of that, and make sure that they're doing everything they can, because they've gone all in once again this year. If they went all in last year, almost just as much so this year. Hell, they were trying to get 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns reportedly in that deal. That was
I kind of wish they did do that. They'd still be bad with him, you know.
I'm as well. I think what they're trying to do is teams try to replicate history, right, Brendan? And you did this with Von Miller last year. And so you're thinking we're making the Von Miller move. And so this will be the thing that puts us over that point, and everything else will settle itself out. But yeah, I still agree with you. I think that they still would have had some holes ongoing with that team that would have held them back. Bobby's playing good though. PFF sure does still like his season he's having with them. He's playing some really good football for them in the middle in that defense. But the game we're going to talk about today, Brendan, is going to be the one that unfortunately we got to get around to talking about, which is as bright and optimistic as you and I are at this point in the season and when going into this bye. Our Seahawks did suffer at the hands of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a loss this past Sunday in Germany. And I'd like to get from you kind of your initial place on this game, because to me, this isn't a simple kind of breakdown on why this goes awry, but I'd like to see where you're kind of at from your mind space with it.
Well, I think the thing about it that's the most bothersome would just be the fact that it seems like we had lost the game before it started. The decisions made in terms of personnel, in terms of formation, in terms of scheme, just seemed like we didn't learn some of the lessons that we supposedly had learned over the last couple months. On offense, I went through the snap counts the other day, and there's no way around it. We didn't use our tight ends nearly as much as we did in previous games. Most of these games, you're seeing Disley on the field a little more than 2/3 of the time. You're seeing Fant on the field about 2/3 of the time, maybe closer to 60%. And Parkinson's on the field about 1/3 of the time. In this game, all those numbers were reduced noticeably. Fant was, I believe, around like 55%. Disley might not even have been half, and Parkinson was on the field about 1/4 of the game. So we saw less tight end usage than we did in pretty much any other game this year. And that was the thing that we kind of talked about before this game as being something that should be an advantage you can exploit against this Buccaneers team, because Devin White struggles in coverage. And even independent of that, the 3 tight end sets have worked against pretty much everyone this year, because the NFL hasn't really figured out a counter for it. And you just didn't use it as much. Instead, you were using a lot of 3 receiver sets. Lockett, Metcalf, and Goodwin were on the field for a pretty large majority of your offensive snaps. And, all 3 of those guys played fairly good games, I think. But it seems like you got away from that. Defensively, you got away from all the things that have been working well for you over this winning streak, I feel like. I saw several instances of a 2-man front on a neutral or even run favorable down, and the Buccaneers took advantage pretty much every time I saw it. I saw a lot of Cody Barton. He played about 80% of that game when we had found success playing him 40 to 50% of the game this last month. Very little Josh Jones, very little dime, less nickel. Well, still a pretty good amount of nickel, I should say. Let me take that back. But you didn't go DB heavy the way you did in previous games. And I understand you were trying to cultivate a game plan for this Buccaneers team specifically, but you have to say mission failed, because you didn't succeed on either level. You didn't succeed with the run defense or pass defense. You didn't succeed with the running game. The passing game got going eventually, but it didn't happen until the second half, really. So nothing really worked. And the frustrating thing to me is it felt like it was something that was kind of preordained by the formations that you used.
Did the Bucs just have the Bucs sort of reinforced a potential blueprint for attacking the Seahawks defense? And let me just add a little more on the question with that, because you get in the pickle with the Cody Barton situation. To your point on that, if he's played more than 75% of the snaps this year, the Seahawks are 1-4. But the problem comes into play if you get into a nickel or, God forbid, base situation defensively. If you go nickel and you say, well, we're going to go defensive back heavy, I think you and I would both agree if I've got Ryan Neal playing the linebacker position of Cody Barton, because that's who you're flipping out at that point, and then Josh Jones as the safety in the backside, he's not going to be a better run defender and taking on blockers at the point of attack if you're having him aligned like that. I would think theoretically you're in that bind, I feel like, putting Cody on the field, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have gone with a heavier formation, a heavier look from a run look, essentially, that you have to counter with a defensive run look. And if I look at the games that they've lost this year, the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints game, you've got these times where teams are just kind of keep with it with the running game, and you just can't quite hold up with it. If they stay committed to it, you'll get borne down. If teams run away from it, there is some of that. I think you're right about the two-man front being a big part of this as you went to those wonky fronts, but that's the part I wonder with Barton on what really would be the counter there if they do go to those kind of formations offensively speaking.
Yeah, well, the whole thing's kind of a contradiction, right? Because theoretically you have Barton out there more to help stop the run. Like that's why he's on the field 80% of the snaps. You wanted to go bigger. You wanted to use more linebackers, less defensive backs, but then you're using more two-man fronts. Which is the opposite of trying to stop the run. So it feels like kind of a contradiction born in there, right? Like on the one hand, you're doing something that is designed to help your pass rush at the expense of your run D. On the other hand, you're putting a substandard player out there on 80% of the snaps, and the results are what they are. And I'm trying to add those two things together to figure out what exactly the plan was. It almost felt to me like we expected Tampa Bay to just not run the ball no matter what, because they haven't been able to all year, which that's somewhat understandable because Tampa Bay has a historically bad run offense. But it does seem like even in that second half, I noticed several instances where Tampa Bay was running the ball well against our two-man front. So there was no adjustment. My first impression was maybe we were hung out to dry because we didn't have enough defensive linemen active, because Monet and Collier were both inactive. But that still leaves you with 5 guys. And I looked at the snap counts. Quentin Jefferson didn't play nearly as much as he usually does as a percentage of snaps. And I understand that he actually played probably a little bit better than he has in other games because he got to play less. But you absolutely could have put him out there a little bit more and not had to deal with the two-man fronts on neutral downs. And you didn't. And that I'm just trying to put that together in my head, and it's kind of hard to figure out.
Yeah, I think you're on point with this. I think you run into the desperation of trying to get the pressure on Tom Brady, which, as we discussed last week, you can't really blitz Brady in order to get the pressure. You can do that here and there maybe, but he's going to see it coming. He's going to see it from a mile away coming, so you need the front four. Carroll talked about this on the radio show yesterday morning, I believe, about the fact of why Miles Adams was active over the top of Brian Monet. And he, to your point on that, said specifically, yes, it's because we were trying to get more of a pass rush. That's what Miles Adams gives you over Monet, who is really more of a run plugger at this point in time. That's just what he is. And so it was, I think it's understandable that the Seahawks took the trek to go that route, thinking that Tampa Bay's been so putrid at running the ball this year. You're thinking they're not going to stay that committed to it, but they did attack it, and teams are going to continue to attack those two-man fronts anytime the Seahawks go into it. And maybe this wasn't a blueprint for how to beat this defense throughout the next course of the season, because they won't go to those two-man fronts as much, but at what point in time do you want to finally learn that lesson, coaching staff, and go, okay, we got to do away with this stuff. It's just, it's not working with the personnel that we have here. The 3-4 is working mightily well. Let's just roll, with that. And it's weird too. You can't get one more defensive lineman kind of active with that too, knowing that I don't know. They played it from that standpoint. It is strange that you're going that light on the defensive line to me, Brendan, with the 3 defensive tackles. It's kind of,
yeah. Well, it's worth noting at this point that Dwayne Eskridge played 0 offensive snaps. So it seems like we're kind of pulling the plug on that. So just make him inactive at this point.
I heard he hurt himself in the game.
Yeah, but I was trying to figure out how, because he didn't play.
He returned to the kickoff.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the charts like.
You're not wrong, though. It is like, you didn't play. What really? What one play you're now injured after that? I'm kind of on my spot with him, man. I'm just like, come on.
Yeah, but I think we had 6 receivers active in this game, because you had the big 3, Metcalf, Lockett, Goodwin. Then you had Eskridge, Hart, and Tariq Young. You don't need 6, not in this offense.
Not when you're going to hammer the ball through the whole first half, right? If you're going to stay that committed to hammering the running game, if it's not working, then why need 6 receivers? doesn't really make much sense. Those things kind of go against each other a little bit.
At least he's still better than Tutu Atwell, I guess.
That is true. Well, Atwell's, he's still not developed, has he?
Yeah, I was actually looking at some of the Rams stats this year because with, of course, Cooper Kupp being declared out now, I was looking at their other receivers. You know, he has one career catch.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah, it was one catch, 54 yards against the Cowboys earlier this year.
Yeah, there's times where we can, from a scouting standpoint, Brendon, get things very much confused or not have at the forefront of our mind the right items on a prospect and the way that that's going to project out to the NFL level. When you have a wide receiver that weighs 148 pounds on their pro day, probably means that guy's going to have a hard time holding up in the NFL. There's not a lot of 148-pound guys able to get it done. And remember, with the pro days, that's them like sand in their pants, as heavy as they possibly could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, at least we kept Eskridge away from the Rams, right? That was the real victory there, right?
As though, well, maybe. I mean, maybe it would have been just as injured for them and just as unproductive, if they had gone that route with them as well. But I'm getting near to the end of my wanting any interest in the Eskridge experiment at this point. I know that the kid's not had a long career here, Brendon, but I'm not seeing a whole lot here that outside of him being a second round pick that warrants him being out on a football field more often than not. He's routinely at the bottom of the grades from PFF. He doesn't run the greatest of routes, doesn't have the greatest of hands, can't catch contested balls. They don't want to use him on fly sweep games. I just kind of go at this point. Let's just go with Goodwin and call it a day.
Right. Just at this point, deactivate him. And I mean, in this game, okay, I know he probably would have played some if he didn't get hurt on the kickoff, but he wouldn't play that much anyway, right? You're pretty married. I like Goodwin actually had a pretty decent game. He had the really nice touchdown catch. That was not an easy catch.
No.
He's played fairly well so far this year. And I mean, I know we haven't targeted him yet this year. I'm not saying that he's likely to be a great receiver either, but at this point, you're clearly more comfortable putting Tariq Young out there than Dwayne Eskridge.
Agreed. That's kind of where I go with this is let's see I don't know what Tariq might have. He looked pretty good to me in the preseason at times, and I saw some upside there. I haven't seen a lot from Eskridge to indicate there's upside here with him on the field. I see more of the holes in his game than I'm seeing the dazzle in his game, and maybe that will change, but now he's injured once again. I think this is like the fifth or sixth injury that he's sustained. He's never at any point been a starter. At times he's struggled to crack ahead of the depth chart on Goodwin and on Penny Hart when he's been healthy. I'm definitely getting a little low on the guy, and it would have been nice to see better, but I just think we're going to have to kind of call that what it is at this point, where it's heading.
Right. But there's your sixth defensive lineman. Just deactivate Eskridge. Give us in this game, it would have been either Monet or Collier. Maybe against the Bucs, you want it to be Collier because you wanted somebody who could push the pocket. And I think Collier can do that a little better than Monet, but either way.
Well, whatever it would take to be able to allow you to run the 3-4 defense, right? That's what you're talking about at the end of the day is like get the 3-4 fronts out there again. That's what's working for us. So what do you need from the personnel to make that happen? Let's go make that, happen. Offensively, I thought this game had a lot of echoes to prior Seahawks teams at times in the way we've run with trying to hammer the run game so much early on when it wasn't working. You end up losing a couple of quarters really quick because your defense isn't getting a lot of great stops on the other side of the ball. And then you finally realize, okay, let's put it in our quarterback's hands. This is what we're doing our best today. This is what we're getting the most yards from. And you seem to have realized it a little bit too late in this game.
Well, I mean, Ken Walker only got 10 carries in this game, so he definitely didn't get utilized very much. We did figure out the run game was not working and abandoned it. I'm not crazy about the way in which we decided to utilize those carries where we had, I don't know if any of them were to the outside. Maybe one of them of those 10 K9 carries, maybe one or
there's actually
to the outside.
There was actually a few. I'm doing a video breakdown right now with some all 22 tape stuff on the Walker because a big narrative that's come out of this game is that Walker's dancing too much, and this is a lot of what you're hearing about from him. And so I'm going to attempt to dispel this narrative and showing the tape with it where he's not in fact dancing too much. There's just no holes. They did some inside, they did the pitch play, they did some outside zone, even out of shotgun on a couple of plays, Brendon, but there weren't any holes there for him. And you're right. It did get a significant amount of carries, but again, it's you've had success this year throwing early on in games. You've had success throwing on first down early on in games. And at times in this game, when you were going to Walker as much as you were, it was on that sort of conservative, we're going to run first down, or we'll try to run second down, and then we get ourselves in the third long and Geno makes something happen. And it was, again, a little bit of a reversion, much like our defense to me, Brendon. It was a bit of a reversion to stuff of the past rather than what we've been throughout the majority, at least early on in this game offensively. They did kind of find their way and finally trusted Geno to start going, and I thought he really played a really good football game overall outside that fumble. But they were, to me, a little bit slow on just kind of recognizing, oh, hell, this is where we're going to make our hay today, is in throwing the football, especially the tight ends, like you said, where they had so much success when they did finally start to throw the tight ends. We had no rollouts. I mean, where were the bootlegs in this game with Geno and the easy throws that he's had over to that side of things? It was just completely absent.
Yeah. I mean, the whole first half in general was just very sleepy, right? Which maybe that makes sense, right? Because it's 6:30 for us, but it's 9:30 for the Bucs because they're an East Coast team. Some people after the game were talking about that a little bit. Do you buy that?
Yeah, let's unpack this. There's this study that came out a few years ago. They looked very in depth at athletes and when they performed at peak time, and you perform at peak time when your body temperature is at peak, and I could go down the whole trail of nerdum on that one to kind of break it down. The bottom line on it boils down to like this: your body performs at a peak territory somewhere between afternoon to late afternoon, right? Right in that territory is when you will perform at your peak. You cannot sidestep that. You cannot fast forward that. You cannot trick your body over the course of a couple days by trying to acclimate to a different time zone. It's just not possible. So when you do talk about a team that's getting up on their time at 6:30 to play a football game, they're not going to be at their athletic best. They're not going to perform at their best. And Brendon, to me, this game looked a lot, the whole game through, Brendon, frankly, like the old 10 a.m. games back in the day in the 90s, in the late 80s, in the early 2000s, where the team comes out and they look like they're sleepwalking through the first two quarters. And then the light bulb turns on somewhere into the third quarter and they start to look like their normal selves. This totally struck me as that kind of game, Brendon. And it's sort of ridiculous to have the players be playing that time. Quite frankly, I understand that they want to have these teams go out into Europe and whatnot, in London, but asking West Coast teams to do it, teams that already have to fly so many miles every year, and to stack that kind of trip on top of it. Yeah, the science backs this up. It's not merely an excuse. It's what the science tells you as well.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that playing games in Europe is making the NFL a lot of money, but I'd never made that much sense to me. And now I know they're talking about having some teams in Europe, like literally like the London Silly Nannies or whatever it is they're going to do, which sounds like the worst idea ever to me. Those teams would just go 8-8 every year. They'd win all their home games and lose all their road games. How could they do anything else?
I agree. And then how are you going to get through all of the measure of talking players into living outside the country that far? It just brings up the air travel is so much. It's just, it would tax. And what it would do, Brendon, is that there would be also an advantage for East Coast teams if they did that, because now you have West Coast teams having to make that trip a lot more often than the once every 3 or 4 years they ask us to do it as it currently stands. It means every year on your schedule, you're going to get those games probably. I just don't, I get why the NFL is going that route with it. I do, but air travel is not fast enough. The game's already very taxing on these guys' body. I mean, then there's the other aspect too, Brendon, the fact they don't have really the field ready to go. That field was not an NFL field. It was not at all. And both teams had to deal with that. So Tampa Bay was in the same boat on that, but it's players at risk. It's a bad service. Guys are slipping and sliding around. You know, it's all kind of done with a little bit of a slingshot approach, or, you know, just a haphazard approach here a little bit, Brendon, and how they've set this up. And I'm glad that the Germans got to see a game and all that, but I'm not really a big fan of this.
I agree.
Garth Knight with a $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. I appreciate you. Says Hawks are plus 5,000 for the Super Bowl. Y'all can make some money throwing down even $50. That's a $2,500 win.
I mean, the Eagles look a little bit after last night, maybe a little bit. How should we put this? I don't want to say fraudulent, but a little bit vulnerable. Those Vikings, though, I guess they're just for real, huh?
They've got a good team. I mean, they're set up in the way that you want to. If you think about it, like, we got to go light somewhere, Brendon. So what we'll do is we'll create an offense that can be pretty productive and explosive. Good receivers on the outside, tight ends that can make it work, especially with Hawkinson's addition there. A running back that can get it done, and an offensive line that's good enough. It's not like they haven't put resources into that line. And then you just almost, regardless of anything else you look at on that defense, from Harrison Smith to whatever else, having Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter coming off the edge, if you can get a lead with that explosive offense, that's a kind of formula that can win you a lot of football games in the NFL. As we see a lot of teams, Brendon, usually will have the one guy coming off the edge. They might have that offense, but then they just have the one guy. But when you got the two, that's how the Broncos got back into that Super Bowl back in 2015 and won it, is that you brought in DeMarcus Ware to pair with Von Miller at that time. And that's really, you got up on teams and you could just kind of roll them a little bit. So, hey, Garth, I mean, that's not a bad bet. Put down, hell, even just put down a $10 bet and you could make some, decent money off that. And you never know. I mean, as it stands right now on our schedule, I think we've got 3 teams that are 500 or better left to play. Some other winnable games out there outside of that, around that. So, all it takes is us to get hot. Like I said, Brendon, Eagles starting to show up, a couple more losses. You can start talking even about maybe, we're a little ways away from the bye, talking about a bye, but division.
We need some of these stragglers to get their heads cut off, though, like Green Bay and Washington. We don't need them hanging around the wild card race. We need them to go away, and then I'll start feeling pretty good about it. I still feel pretty good about it now, but
yeah,
there are only 7 spots.
I agree. That's why I say too, it's all about the division, man. It's all about that division. You can get real simple on that real quick in that regard of things. But thank you, Garth. Good note out there for the folks looking to make a little bit of coin. Jacob Kessinger with a $5 donation. Thank you, Jacob. The best ability is availability. They'll keep Eskridge while he's cheap and on the rookie deal, and then they will cut him.
I mean, we don't even necessarily have to keep him through the whole rookie deal at this point, right? Like, he's got 2 years left after this one, but if you really have no intention of playing him, and at this point, it seems like maybe you trust him to return kicks. I don't even know about that, because you kind of had to twist their arms to get them to even let him do that. We were letting Lockett do returns. We were letting DJ Dallas do returns. Who else did returns for us this year? I think there was one other guy. Who was it? Maybe that was it.
That's it, I think. That's all. I mean, he got injured on a return here in this game. So he went out there and then he got hurt doing it. I think the team's going to maybe keep him on for a while, but hard to say on that, Jacob. I mean, that's really a tough call on whether they go, because they could be kind of fed up with it too, where they go, look, he's injured. It's not there. This ain't happening. I mean, this team, they do have a guy like LJ Collier they'll hold on to, who doesn't show a lot, and they still kind of hold on to him because he is that high pick. I can't think of a lot of guys that they've had come through here that were first or second round picks that they just were like, okay, we got to just let him go. It's just outside of a Malik McDowell, kind of deal. So they do tend to kind of hold on to guys as much as they can. But boy, I'll tell you what, he's not showed a lot on the football field right now. And beyond not showing a lot, they just haven't shown a willingness to utilize him in his skill set. I mean, the guy should be getting at least 2 or 3 bubble screens a game or a couple fly sweeps a game. Just find a way to get him some touches. Brendon, do they try at all to find this guy touches to your eyes?
No, I mean, I remember this thing that Pete said earlier this year about Eskridge. He basically said he implied that he had basically gained no experience from his rookie year. He basically said he's back to square one in terms of like learning this playbook and being, an NFL level player. Like the concussion just knocked all the knowledge he would have picked up last year out of his brain. We're talking about a guy who's already 25. So it probably just is what it is at this point. If the team were to release him this week, and, we certainly see teams release high draft picks after less than 2 years. That happens sometimes. Look at what the Raiders have been doing lately with their high draft picks. It's a bloodbath over there. It would not surprise me if we did get the word later this week, or even, well, it is the bye week, so now is actually a pretty good time to do it if you're going to do it, that Eskridge has been released. And I don't think this team would change if that happened.
No, and I don't think it's likely to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it occurred either on the other side of it, because it's, again, been, when I say 5 or 6 injuries, it's been something like that. He's walked into both camps with injuries through his first couple of years and had a couple other injuries on top of it. I think it's something just worth saying. It's like, it's going where it's going on this one, unfortunately. Maybe he can turn it around at this point, but and I know Eskridge has got a lot of folks out there that like his game a lot with it, but again, he's matched up as a pro exactly to what I saw on the tape in college, which was part of why I was a little bit down on him coming out, is that the same things you saw from him then, from the injuries to the lack of route running, to the inability to catch the ball consistently when he is there, shows up again and again and again here in the pros. And it sucks, but kind of is what it is, in that regards of things. So looking at the offensive side of the ball, we did get a little bit of movement in this game, a little bit of early on with the running game. Geno, I think, did play well. What was your assessment, though, from how you see Geno in this game?
I think that if what we saw on Sunday is quote unquote bad Geno, then we're doing very well. Mm-hmm. Right? Like think about bad Geno a decade ago, when he was with the Jets. Bad Geno was 4 or 5 turnovers, maybe 1 or 2 good drives the whole game. No opportunity for his team to win. Just even if the defense plays out of their mind, you're still going to lose. Just nothing really going on there. If this is now the bad Geno, where he misses a couple of throws, has the really, really bad turnover, and it was bad. Like, I don't know what he's doing on that play. It feels like he made like 3 different mistakes on the same play. And like that is unfortunate, because that was a huge turning point in this game. It really looked like we were about to seize control, and then that happened. But you also look at it and go, he didn't get much of an opportunity because we never had the ball. We couldn't run the ball at all. Completely one-dimensional offense. Now, the offensive line played great in pass blocking, so they held up their end. But you look at that second half when we were playing from behind, made some great throws, did a lot of really good stuff out there. He converted 2 4th downs on that last touchdown drive, did everything he could to keep us in the game there. So what I'm going to say is that if this is the bad version of Geno Smith that we're getting, I think we're doing very well. He still gave us a chance to win. He was still good enough for this team to be in there. As much as they didn't do anything well in this game, really, we were right there. If we get the ball back with a couple minutes left, if we get Brady off the field there at the end, I actually kind of feel like he would have gone down and won that game.
I agree. I feel like he's really feeling himself at that point. He's in the flow of the game, which was a little bit off early on. And I'm glad to hear you say that in the respect of not dogging on him as I had seen some fans do. I do feel like there is a little bit of some folks out there that have sort of anti-Geno. They've been anti-Geno since the offseason, and they'll continue to be anti-Geno. They've had to be kind of quiet as they watch him play so well, but they're yet still waiting on that performance to come through, which will prove him to be what he, to your point, was back with the Jets. And this was not a Jets-like performance. Again, to your point, this was a really good performance overall. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect, but I think it does speak, as I spoke about in my post-game reference on this, Brendon, it does speak about how far Geno has come in the eyes of fans, that he can go out there and perform like this. And it has people, going, well, it was a little bit of a down performance for him. It's just like, that's because he's been playing that phenomenally, that even a good game, but maybe not a great game, has people feeling like almost like it's a porous game for him. So I thought he did good overall. I thought he did with what he could with what he was given here in this game, Brendon, and that overall it was good. The thing I didn't like about that was also the play call there, Brendon. I know we had some effectiveness with it early in the year, and just because you had effectiveness, I don't think that makes it a smart play necessarily. And that's the quarterback keeper up the middle, the direct snap draw. I don't like that call there. Not with Geno moving the ball up the field on his arm, and then you're going to take it away from him in that moment to have him try to run. That was a very weird call to me.
Yeah, I mean, the play calling in general, I was not crazy about in this game. The way in which the offense worked in general didn't make a lot of sense to me. That was definitely another one where I don't totally get it. Like Geno, like you said, has used his legs fairly well this year, but we are talking about a game where he was starting to feel it, and then you run a play like that. It's kind of like the Niners game, right?
Yeah,
the Niners game where he's actually got a little something going here against this Niners defense, and then you're running Wildcat with DJ Dallas 2 plays in a row. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. And yeah, that's again where I come back to. He was locked in this game. Those 4th down throws you mentioned were just outstanding, where, he's got to throw with anticipation on those throws. Buccaneers are bringing some heat. Guy's not even broken out of his route, and he's making that throw. He just continues down the line with me here, Brendon, to impress me over and over again. And I would like to know if you feel like this as well. It's just another performance to me that just pushes me closer in the direction of saying Geno Smith is the smart approach to go with in signing him to a contract extension this offseason at this point, all things considered.
Yeah, I kind of am on that train as well. And it has honestly more to do with this very disappointing draft class than it does Geno's play, but Geno's play is certainly a factor in it. A lot of people, I mean, there is some concern that he's going to be a one-hit wonder, which is definitely possible, but
can we unpack that?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I don't think it's the case, because the way in which he's succeeding, it's not like the 1 year that RG3 had, where he was completely dependent on his physical attributes. And once he got hurt and those physical attributes weren't there anymore, it was just done. This is something he's doing with his mind more than anything. He's not doing it because he has the greatest arm talent of all time. He's not doing it because he's faster than everyone else. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do acknowledge it's at least possible, is what I'm trying to say.
It is certainly possible. I just always say, if you're going to bring up a possibility, and you're not bringing it up, but the general, that the folks out there that do bring it up, then you've got to have it backed by something. Like you said, well, he's relying on his legs right now, and he's about to be mid-30s, and those legs are going to go away, and then he's going to be a shell of himself. But that's not the case. Like you said, a lot of what he's doing is the elder quarterback stuff, the control at the line of scrimmage, the, going through his reads, the understanding what he's seeing and seeing it correctly post snap. You could put it all down the line as cerebrally what you want from your quarterback, and he's applying that. And that is, to me, something that he can replicate on into the future. That's not a 1 year off or just some sort of anomaly. He also doesn't have something where there's some crazy talent who's having an MVP season on the offensive side of the ball for him that's just going so amazingly that that it's almost carrying Geno along to this great year. That's not occurring either. He's got 2 rookie tackles, Brendon. 2 rookie tackles who are playing good, but they're rookies nonetheless on either side of him out there. I mean, there's stuff that's set up for him to definitely succeed here, but it's not the absolute most ideal situation across the league for any quarterback out there. It's a good situation. It's a helpful situation, but I really do think he's going to be able to push this into the future. And I think your point about the college quarterbacks is the one folks have to really consider. I think you got to be hesitant to go, let's go get our quarterback in the draft and we'll go get the best we can. And it doesn't matter what the talent is in this draft at quarterbacks. That's got to be that's the way to go. I think you can't go that route, Brendon, when you see what these quarterbacks are kind of doing now in this college season, where no one's really taking a step forward, are they?
Hendon Hooker took a step forward, but that's about everyone else kind of took a step back except for Stroud and Young. And I still don't really like Young that much. So, and Stroud's off the board, by the way. He's going to be a Texan. I think we all know that. Of
course. Yes. 100%. And if not, then it would be the next team. We're not going to land into that area and we'll be talking about the Broncos in a second here, but we're not going to get in that area of things. So Stroud is off. I mean, hell, even Levis maybe could be off at that point. I know as much as his stock has dipped for some folks, I still think the NFL personnel is going to give him sort of the Josh Allen benefit of the doubt in his situation there.
Well, but I mean, I was suggesting this with some of my viewers the other day. Is the difference between Josh Allen and Drew Lock just coaching, or at least 90% coaching? Could it be?
It very well could be. I was hearing about this point talked about today with the Dable situation, right? Because Dable was with the Buffalo Bills as an offensive coordinator there, and he got Josh Allen's game to this next level, right? Josh was here, and first year was really rough, and it wasn't like he got into the league and he just took the league by storm like a Mahomes type. First year was kind of rough. Then he figured it out with Dable kind of instructing him and guiding him and putting the offense around him in the right place. Dable goes to the Giants as a head coach now. Josh Allen is back to kind of the wild at the stick ways that he had early on. This is a little bit to your point, that maybe coaching on this is a real big benefactor to this.
Right. So maybe that's what's going to make or break Will Levis. Does he go to the right coach?
I'm going to say I think it's 100% that, along with going to a right situation where he's got a team in front of him to set him up for succeeding. If he goes into a Justin Fields-like situation in Chicago, Levis is going to fail at that. And you can see that failure coming a long way down the track. But if he is somehow, especially if Brendon, that works out like this, where his stock does dip just a bit to get into the teens, to get a little bit deeper into that draft, to be able to fall to a team that's maybe a little more set up to go right now, he could land in a really good situation and hit that ground running, I think, even though he hasn't played very good ball. And I've got to acknowledge it's definitely taken to almost a degree this year with Levis. It's a little bit of step back. I do think, again, though, a lot of it comes from he's got nothing around him. He's got freshman receivers he's throwing to. He's got an offensive line that can't pass protect. It's just bad kind of all
I believe from last year, Kentucky lost 3 starting offensive linemen to the NFL because it was, I think, Luke Fortner. They had a guard. And there was also Wan'Dale Robinson went to the Giants, his top receiver. Like they lost a lot, and they didn't do much to replace it, it looks like, because that offensive line has been terrible all year. And also, on top of that, if we do not keep Geno, then what do you do? Keeping in mind that Carroll is very old and wants to win now. He doesn't want to win in 3 years when he might be worn out and need to retire. If it's not Lamar Jackson, then it's like Taylor Heineke, who I kind of like Taylor Heineke, but is he going to be the guy who wins for you? Probably not. It's like Gardner Minshew. It's not really a good quarterback free agent class either. So if it's not Geno, what is it?
Well, in regards to Carroll winning right now too, don't you think, Brendon, that this roster is further along in its construction than we thought at the start of the year to taking advantage of a quarterback who is in his prime right now? I think that's the other thing that's got to inform us of this decision. And it does me in this regards, in the respect of you have a team that's not 2 years away from becoming an elite team again. You make some moves right this offseason, 4 picks, first 2 rounds, bingo, bango, boom, you're right there. I can really see going that route. That's another thing that lends itself well to me. You bring Geno in. It's the player you already know. You ain't learning somebody else from scratch. You know what he can do good. You know what he can do bad. You know what to lean away from. You build more up around him, get the interior of that line even better, Brendon. Get him a center, God forbid. Look out. Look out at that point, in my opinion. So it's more of where I think this decision is going to go and start to lie in on. But you got to look at this quarterback class, and as good, like you mentioned, Hendon Hooker. Yeah, he's elevated himself from a 3rd rounder to maybe top of the 1st, right? He hasn't elevated himself into necessarily a territory of, no doubt about a top 10 first-round pick at the quarterback position.
Right.
I don't think anybody thinks he's going to go anywhere near that spot.
The good thing is you're going to find out the information you need before you have to make a decision on this Geno stuff, because you're going to know what pick you have from Denver before you have to make a decision on Geno. So let's say Denver loses out and you get the number 1 overall pick. Then
Lord,
I'm definitely looking to sign and trade Geno or something, because I can get CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, I believe in enough to where I'm willing to let Geno go. But if you end up with another pick that isn't going to get you Stroud, then I'm much more inclined to keep Geno. Also, you're going to know by then if Shane Waldron has maybe gone to get another head coaching job somewhere else. If Shane Waldron is gone, then maybe I don't want to keep Geno because of the possibility that Geno's play is being elevated by Waldron's game planning, that you might lose then, because you don't really have anyone on the staff underneath him who you can elevate to keep the same offense. So you're going to know these things before you have to make the Geno decision. And I believe those things are a huge factor.
Yeah, the Waldron part coming in as a head coach option somewhere else, that could throw my whole possible plan away here with that, Brendon. Let me ask you this, though, with the 1 overall pick, or being in that position to get Stroud at that point, if somehow Denver just fell completely apart. What if a team's willing to offer you 3 first-round picks for that pick, and you still get to pick in the top 10 with one of those first-round picks, and you could just sign Geno at that point?
Well, the thing is, who would it be?
How do you turn
Because
that down?
if it's a team, like let's say it's the Panthers,
Mm-hmm.
I have no faith in that organization. So you get their next 3 first-round picks, those first-round picks could be really good.
Right.
But if it's a team like a team that I have a little more faith in to be able to build around CJ Stroud quickly and win a lot, and I don't know who that team would be, but if it's a team that I'm thinking like, okay, they're going to get CJ Stroud and it's going to be off to the races.
Colts.
Yeah, there we go. Then I'm like, well, the thing with the Colts is they've got a crazy owner. They might, you don't know what that guy's, you don't know what Irsay's going to do.
I'm pulling the trigger. See, this is where if I'm still be able to take that, if one of the first round picks I get in this very draft in the top 10, and I'm picking up in that high point, and we're California dreaming here, Brendon, because we know Denver's probably not going to lose out completely. It could get
we'll
dark.
Talk about that in a second.
It could get dark. Yeah, it's getting dark there, so it could get even darker. But if that occurred to me, I get those 3 first-round picks. So let's say I'm picking with the Panthers' 6th overall selection in this draft, and I have 2 future firsts. Then I still have our first in this draft as well, and there's still 2 second-round picks. So I've lost no picks. I've just picked up multiple first-rounders to the future. And yeah, you are passing on Stroud, but you have the viable option then in Geno Smith, and the type of team that you're then putting around Geno Smith with all those picks over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I would say if it's a team like Pittsburgh, I might not do it because Pittsburgh is a stable organization. I think they would quickly build around Stroud. They would be able to win. They have some magical ability to draft amazing receivers, so I think Stroud would be off to the races. Then I would be like, hey, am I really excited to pick in the 25 to 29 range the next 2 years when I could just take Stroud? Remember, Stroud's going to be about 10 times cheaper than Geno. But if it's a team like Carolina that just seems relatively hopeless right now, then I'm a little more inclined to do it. Yeah. So there are some variables there.
If New England came calling, I'd probably say no to New England too.
Yeah, that's another one. I mean, that wouldn't happen, but I see what you're.
Yeah, there's a couple out there that you're right that you would be a little hesitant, but that would be a tasty if this goes wonky there. Garth Knight with the $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. Says Brando, your chat hates Eskridge. Can we trade him to the Rams for Akers?
I mean, you want to talk about two guys who need a change of scenery, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I guess I don't want to help the Rams out at all, and they've got a bad situation with Akers. I just send him somewhere else, and you don't potentially have a reclamation you give him in that sense of it. Though I still don't have a lot of faith he's going to turn it around. And boy, yeah, Akers is just not being able to bounce back, man, from that Achilles.
Yeah, I don't see that being undone. I think that he's just kind of. I mean, I don't think he's going to retire, but I don't think he's ever going to be a good player again.
No. That's the injury that sometimes guys just can't bounce back from, even with modern science, even as far as it's progressed for poor Akers, because he was looking like a good player before that injury. Or maybe he's just got in the doghouse there, McVay. Maybe he's just back to awesome shape and just McVay doesn't like him, you know? Mm-hmm. He's like, you flirted with my daughter. Byron D with a $5 donation. Thank you, Byron. I appreciate it.
If he's flirting with Sean McVay's daughter, he should be in jail.
Is he? I don't. Oh, that's right.
Because McVay's still like 35.
That's right. He is very.
We have much bigger problems if he's doing that.
Which, joke's on you. He had a Sweet 16 relationship at that time. They were young people. They didn't know what they were doing. Damn it.
Yeah.
Wasn't
there an Adam Sandler movie where that happened?
I think there was. Yeah. Where he has a kid when he's like, no, there was the running joke. That was also the joke in remember the Meet the Parents that the guy played.
Oh, yeah.
You think he slept with his nanny, and then he had the kid with the nanny, and they get the kid that's Hispanic but looks a little bit like Ben Stiller too in the movie. Remember, so he kind of looks, it's freaking Ben out the whole time, like he's like, oh my god. Byron D with a $5 donation. Thank you, Byron. Says, our O-line about to be dangerous. Do we draft a center and a right guard? Because the other three positions are good young players. Also, where's the cat? I forgot to put up the cat tree. She's in the bedroom right now, so she's sleeping on the bed. Which way do you go on that one, man?
Well, I looked at the free agent crop of centers next year. I didn't see anything amazing. So I am kind of thinking about drafting a center. I will say that. That's been one of my priorities for a while now. There are some centers I like: Jared Patterson, Cedric Van Pran, Schmitz over in Minnesota. There are a couple of nice ones. And we always know there are always offensive linemen who move when they get to the NFL, right? Like they played guard in college, but their arms are too short, so now they're going to play center or whatever.
Right.
As for right guard, let's think about this, because Damian Lewis, it took him like a year and a half, but seems like he's settled in a little bit at left guard.
It does.
I will say I'm not buying what PFF is selling completely. Like they gave our entire offensive line these incredible run block grades, and yet he didn't run the ball at all.
It's going to be a graphic I literally post in my video that I'm going to do on this Walker thing. You're right. They all had good run blocking grades except for Gabe Jackson, who was like middling, even he. Yeah.
And to me, that's like, okay, did Ken Walker turn into Trent Richardson for one game or something? Because that's the only way that makes sense. Like he literally had 1.7 yards a carry. Like that, I don't buy that. But I can't remember his name. There's one tape grinder on YouTube who studies offensive linemen exclusively, who thinks that Damian Lewis is one of the best left guards in the league. And he's done some videos on this. So seems like we do have something there. Phil Haynes has graded out fairly well so far this year. He's young. The only problem with him is he's a little injury prone. But honestly, you could roll forward with him, and I don't mind that, because right guard, pretty easy. You can draft somebody in the 6th round to be a backup, and he'll probably be competent. Like that's basically what we got with J.R. Sweezy, right? Mm-hmm. So honestly, it might be 4 out of 5. Yeah,
I'm feeling more solid, Byron and Brendan, with with Lewis now at left guard, he is starting to settle in there. He's doing some stuff too, as far as pulling back across the formation post snaps, showing off some mobility that we thought was maybe a little bit lacking with him. He's getting those wham blocks back across the formation, and it is impressive with him. And he's also holding up in pass protection, which was a big concern with him sliding over to the left guard, dealing with those 3 techs. Right guard's pretty easy, to your point, especially in free agency. It drives me crazy. You get to free agency every year and you look for left guards, and there is 0. You look for right guards, and there's about 59 of them on the market every year, and good ones, Brendon. Guys that are Pro Bowl right guards that will find their way onto the market. And you're like, really, this guy's out here now, right? For this. So you can find these guys. They do become available in other ways. You mentioned drafting them. You can get them later in the draft because they're not going to be held up as high as the left guards, like a Zion Johnson that went in this last draft to the Chargers, I think in the first round, because he was a legitimate pure left guard. He wasn't a right guard. He's pure left. It's hard to find those left guys. They're few and far between. So Byron, I'm going with center. I'm good with staying with Damian Lewis, and let's go get a badass center and plug him in, and then we'll go find what we need to go find a right guard. Bring back Haynes, get somebody else in here that you can get to compete with him. Certainly would like to see Brendon a little bit more mobile guys. I think with a lot of what they're doing in the run game at times, it's coming on the success of them moving those linemen sometimes, having them hit the reach blocks. It'd be nice to have a guy a little more patterned off to. There's one play I see when this was breaking the tape down, Brendon, where you have Devin White. He's 4 yards off ball. He's going to shoot the A gap. Gabe Jackson at right guard's got to hit the block on him, but all Gabe's got to do is go 1.5 yards to his left. White's got to go 4 yards to get to be able to hit the gap pure, to get past essentially Gabe Jackson. Gabe can't reach him. He can't get there on that 1.5 yards over to reach that block. White shoots right past him, blows the whole play up at that point. But you just see it with him weekly, where he's just not quick enough to be able to get to those blocks. And that's a part you really do need in this offense with what you ask these linemen to do versus what you would ask them to do 5, 6, 7 years ago under Carroll with those offenses. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm wondering how long we keep this offensive line rotation going, because it worked a little bit, but it really seems like one guy has far outstripped the other in terms of ability.
He just can't move. I'm watching the tape with the 22, and it's just Jackson can't move anymore. Maybe he can still lay a good hammer block when he gets squared up on a guy, but you ask him to go a couple steps to his left, go a couple steps to his right, which again, this is what this offense is built to ask their linemen to do. He just doesn't really have it anymore in his bag to be able to pull that stuff off. It's a very slow, and he's missing blocks, and guys are getting through, and it's killing running plays, quite frankly. So I think you're right. We're kind of getting to that spot. Thank you, Byron, though, for the $5 donation. Kevin Mullen with a $5 donation. Thank you, Kevin. Says, thoughts on DJ Dallas's punt return decisions. 64-yard fair catch. Is he the right guy back there? Why isn't Homer or Hart returning?
It wouldn't surprise me if DJ has a directive to just fair catch everything at this point, because punt returning has been a disaster for us this year.
Yeah, Kevin, it's been awful this year all the way around. This has been the worst year for punt returns I've seen, maybe in Seahawks history, quite frankly. You've had multiple fumbles. DJ Dallas has an issue where he can't seem to gauge where the ball is in the air. If it's a short kick, he just goes, I'm not going to touch it. And then it rolls for 70 yards. And to your point, then this last week, he's got plenty of room to go work and maybe take the ball up and go do something with it. Instead, just fair catches it. Kevin, he's back there doing it because nobody else is better on the roster to do it right now. They tried to put Tyler Lockett back there to be the sure-handed guy, the guy that they can at least just rely on to catch it. He has a couple of fumbles. So the other guys out there, I don't think are going to be any better at doing it than Dallas, even though Dallas is bad at it. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do anything about this until you get into the off season. So it's really the best of bad options is the answer on this one. Why they didn't do more this off season to address it, why they didn't have, for instance, Eskridge more in a role of learning how to do that. I mean, you're struggling to get this guy touches, Brendon. It would seem to me that would be the straightforward way of doing it is let's get him some touches this way. You know, it took him half the year to just start to put him in as a kick returner. So odd, but I don't think they're sitting on some grade A option, Kevin, that they haven't put out there. And they're just like, well, DJ's doing so good. Let's just keep rolling with him. Cause it's been bad, hasn't it?
Right.
All the way around.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't really mind him fair catching and making sure he just gets the possession back to this offense that has been really good this year. We have a top 5 offense right now. I understand the wisdom of just going, let me just make sure my offense gets this ball. Like even if we're a little deeper on our side of the field than we should be, I just don't want to mess this up.
I'm okay with that. Just, I don't want the short punts to be landing. You need to come up and catch the punt. You need to be able to be in a position to run up and make the catch, not let the kicker punt it up in front of you as he's had a couple of times because he's set up too deep, Brendon. Then you're giving him like a free 60-yarder at that point that they didn't really earn. It's hard to get a 64-yarder up in the air like that on that particular play that he had. You're not going to see punters do that more often than not. But the thing where they roll it, they've done that to him a couple times, and that's the one that he can control and do a little bit more to stop.
Yeah, that was one of Bill Parcells' greatest pet peeves, I think, letting the ball bounce on a punt. That drove him crazy.
Yeah, because it's the punter doing one of two things. Either it's a bad punt by the punter, or he's trying to take advantage of you setting up too deep as a punt returner, which is what I think they're doing with DJ Dallas. Is he's trying to get too much depth because he doesn't want to go backwards, but then he doesn't really feel comfortable coming forwards either. And that's like, I'm not a fan of that at that point, Brendon. I say, you've got to get up there and make those catches. You come up, it's, the move they do, right, Brendon? You've seen it before. Lockett used to be really good at this. They come flying up, right? They're screaming up on the low punt. They dive down onto their knees as they've done the fair catch signal, and they dive down and they slide down and they catch it. And it's hard. Right. It's not easy, but again, remembering nobody can hit you. Nobody can touch you. You got a free lane to just go up there and catch the ball if anybody messes with you. So there's nobody to fear you, especially if you've done the fair catch, to fear you being hit. But that's the part he's got to clean up. I'm with you. If he wants to fair catch everything, fine, but catch the ball. Catch it. Thank you, right. Kevin. I appreciate you. Guard Knight with a $10 dono. Thank you for the double donos on the deal tonight, Garth, or the triple donos, I should say. It says the Seahawks win a title this year, and the Killer Bees helped fans get invested during the Christmas season. That is a Hallmark movie. Henry Cavill will be Brando, and Henry Golding will be Brendo. I'll take Henry Cavill play me.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't even know who Henry Golding is.
I don't know Henry Golding either, so I'll have to go look that one up here after the stream, Garth. Hopefully it's complimentary. But I'll take Henry Cavill. I'll take that, Garth. I appreciate that. That'd be awesome.
I can dig it.
Yeah, I can definitely dig it. Thank you, Garth, though. You're awesome, brother. Appreciate you. You're awesome as well. The Snail with the $2 donation says, cut Eskridge and braid Cade Johnson up to return. There's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't know if he can do it, but he's looking at his game. He seems like the kind of guy who can do it.
Yeah, he possibly could do it. I think he has done a little bit back in college, if I'm not mistaken, Snail, back when he was with the Jackrabbits. I think he did do a little bit of the return game on that. So if you do have a guy down on the practice squad right now that can do that better, hard to think that they would give anything less than what Eskridge is giving as far as a receiver goes at this point. Though I guess, Brendon, you mentioned a couple weeks ago, I guess he does block pretty well. That is something that I guess Eskridge does. Bring to the table.
People... I wonder when other teams are going to catch on to this, by the way. Some people have noted that whenever we have Eskridge and Tariq Young on the field, it's always a run. 100% of the time. It's either a run or like a screen that's basically a run. So, yeah, I wonder when opposing defenses are going to figure that one out.
Well, maybe if as a smart offensive coordinator, you start to realize teams are completely selling out then to deal with the run at that point, knowing what the personnel you're bringing out. So run a Tariq Young go route. See if you can get one of those Freddie Swain busted coverage kind of plays at that point as a counter at some point this year. Maybe a smart approach for Waldron if he can think to potentially do it.
All right. So Cade Johnson returned 56 kicks in his college career, but I don't see anything about punts. So he did do a lot of kick returning. I just checked. Yeah.
And kick returning, I'm not as worried about because Goodwood, they had Eskridge doing it, but Dallas did okay as a kick returner to me. Like he was fine. Yeah. For what it's a lot like punt returns. It's like it's been pretty much neutralized in the NFL overall anyway. So there's not a lot there for you to go out there and get. There's not a lot of meat on that bone, but he did okay with it. He gets you up to the 25, 30, 34-yard line if things really broke through on a particular play. It's the punt return part that I'm most worried about. And that's the part where if that's your stats on that point to, there just isn't a guy on this team that can do it. And it's if you have a guy back there, Snail, or anybody that's not comfortable doing it, it's their first time doing it, it can look really wonky. Remember Earl Thomas back there trying to return at one point, right at the end of his time. I mean, it can get ugly really quick if you got a guy not sure-handed back there or comfortable in doing it.
Yeah, and like I said, the important thing is you get possession of the ball with this offense the way that it's playing. You just don't want to give the other team the ball back.
Right. Exactly. You don't want to give them a free turnover or something like that. You don't want the worst thing to possibly happen to that, as has happened this year. Because again, you need your special teams to be a bonus point of this team, not a detriment, not something that you have to overcome. That's the way you set the stage with how this team is put together and how you win football games. So we did talk a little bit about it, but I want to just touch on it again. We did have Denver fall again this week to the Tennessee Titans, and this isn't going to be a point where we're looking to talk anything about Russell Wilson or anything else, but it does look like that pick. Now, as we get a couple more weeks deeper into this, and we see them making the trade of Bradley Chubb at that point, boy, that defense is still really holding on. That defensive coordinator there is going to get some looks potentially as well out there. I mean, he's a first-time guy, but boy, he has done a great job with that defense.
Yeah. Although, let me put something out there. I saw this in a comment from a Broncos fan on I think it was a comment section on SB Nation the other day, where they basically said, yeah, we have a good defense, but he also wondered, is part of the reason why this defense produces such great results that opposing offenses don't take any risks against our defense, because we know that as long as we don't turn the ball over, we're not going to lose this game because their offense can't score. Is that part of it, where other offenses just go, okay, let's go 3 and out the whole game. Let's punt the ball 8 times. We're still going to win as long as we don't turn it over. So don't take any risks. Don't do anything weird. Just score 17 points over the course of the game, and that's going to be enough. Do you think that's an aspect of why Denver is doing such a good job preventing teams from scoring points?
Maybe lately, maybe in the last couple of games, maybe a game like this Tennessee game with a guy like Vrabel, who will already naturally, as a defensive-minded coach, lean into that kind of style of play. But to start off with Seahawks in Denver with Carroll, I don't think Carroll was running that game plan conservatively against the Broncos to count on the fact that Wilson wasn't going to put up more points than he put up. I don't think the Texans did in week 2 against the Broncos either. I mean, there was certainly something to be said for this in the respect of, we saw this in 2020 on the other end of it, when you have an offense that's throwing the ball all over the place, that then presses the opposition's offense to do away with the running game and try to match you point for point. And when they kind of are forced to do so, they can a lot of times when they go outside that. So there is a little bit of that flip side of that coin here, that you're to your point on that. But I do think that would be more of a recent thing. I don't think the Texans were thinking, let's go into Denver and we'll trust on the fact our defense will be able to keep this Denver offense from scoring 20 points today. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a recency thing as well, because of all these injuries they've had. Like in this last game, no Randy Gregory, no Baron Browning, no Bradley Chubb, no Justin Simmons. I think I'm forgetting somebody else they didn't have as well. Like all these injuries, and it's like you don't even notice it. You almost wonder, like, why are they even bothering paying Randy Gregory $70 million when they are getting the exact same results with UDFAs that make like $30 a week? So I think at this point, that's a factor. Like I didn't get to watch a ton of that Broncos Titans game, but I did watch some of it. It does seem like there's a concerted effort to just say, you know what, just don't turn it over and we're going to win.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's obviously a good defense. I am wondering what happens when they have to play Kansas City, because other than Seattle, what are the good offenses they played so far this year? Because they played the Colts. It's not really a good offense at all.
Yeah.
They played the Texans, not a good offense. They played the Niners. They're an okay offense, like sometimes. Very inconsistent. Who else? The Jets, not particularly good. That was the game where they lost Breece Hall as well, and they had to lean on Zach Wilson, and we all know how that goes. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how they do against the Chiefs, to see if some of these things go away a little bit.
No, you're right. Jaguars on there too on that list. So it's definitely not been there's not been a juggernaut they've gone up against offensively speaking at this point.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
And by Carroll's own admission, in that first game, we were babying Geno heavily those first 2 weeks.
I feel like I've definitely did San Francisco, but I don't know about the Bronco game. I felt like they had him pretty well unleashed in that game. We threw 75% of the time in that opening week. I think you went for it. And for week 1, now week 2 was completely different against the Niners, but Carroll was willing to let Geno go out there and kind of cook in that first game, I felt like, and go at them. But it's going to be a way teams are going down into the future of this season, Brendon, because they know that Bronco offense isn't going to be able to get any more productive anytime soon. The part that stood out to me about this game of the Titans that they played was he got hit like 18 times, 6 sacks. the line is absolutely awful and it's not getting any better anytime soon. But this is going to push our pick into a good place. Like you were talking about, you were dreaming big a second ago there with the number 1 overall selection. But we stand 7th right now.
Yeah, let's think about this. They've got a 3rd string left tackle, 3rd string right tackle, 3rd string center at the moment, I believe. And I believe those circumstances are, at least for the moment, going to continue. I don't think they're getting people back imminently. And they don't know how long they're not going to have Judy. So they've got one good receiver. It's Sutton. That's it. And Sutton is, I don't know if he's suited terribly well for Russell's game.
I don't think so.
Dulich is pretty good. I guess there was just something up with Albert O to where he doesn't work with Russell because these other tight ends are doing better. It's kind of weird. Even the undrafted Virgil Green guy who caught the long touchdown in this game, like I guess it was just something up with Albert O specifically.
Do they have only? I'm looking at their schedule right now, Brendon. I think they might only have one more win on their schedule, maybe.
Well, here's the nice thing. Their offense is so bad, they never have an easy game. Every game's guaranteed to be close because they can't score.
It's a good point. But, I mean, Chargers, Chiefs twice the Chiefs. The Rams, they have to play. The Cardinals game, I don't think that's going to be an easy one for them. Cardinals will put some points up on them at least a little bit, I think. Ravens, at the Ravens. I mean, I think at the Panthers is their most winnable game, and even that one's at 10 a.m. on the road. They go to the Raiders this next week. But, Brennan, if they lose out, do we have the number 1 overall pick?
I feel like Houston still gets it. Houston's playing okay, but it seems like they've mastered the art of playing competitively and then always losing anyway. It's like they perfected this art form of never getting embarrassed and always putting like a watchable product on the field, but they always lose.
It's a good point, man. I mean, and they've got some, as far as winnable games for them, the Commanders coming up. That's that one, and Jaguars and the Colts at the end of the year. And then they got some tough games in there from the Cowboys to the Chiefs to the Titans to the Browns with Watson back there. So I think you're probably right. At the end of the day, there's really not a pathway to the number 1 overall pick. But if you are picking 2 or 3, there might be a pathway to a Will Anderson or a Jalen Carter.
I think the number 2 pick is on the table.
Yeah.
I think the number 2 overall pick is there. But my guess is that the Broncos win their next 2 games and then lose out. I think they beat the Raiders because the Raiders, I mean, the seat of their power is having elite pass catchers, and they don't right now. They have Devontae Adams, and that's it because Waller is out and Renfro. So, admittedly, that Carolina pass rush with Brian Burns, like they still have a pretty good pass rush over there in Carolina, and you better believe they're going to be hitting Russell over and over and over again, even if the Broncos find a way to win. So that could go either way.
It really could. And yeah, it's not a good sign when you got your quarterback bawling his eyes out in a press conference, and not because something awesome has happened. It's getting dark there in Oakland. No pun intended.
Yeah.
It's getting a little
Vegas.
Vegas. Oh, that's right. God, it's going to take me years to figure that one out. How about this one? We got a $2 donation from 283 who's suggesting, what about signing Tavon Austin for special teams? How about reuniting Geno and Tavon Austin, the West Virginia crew?
He's so old now, though. I feel like returning kicks is something you want a younger guy to do, is my thing.
I mean, we brought in Devin Hester at the end. He was still doing okay, wasn't he?
I mean, I guess he had the one return that didn't count. I don't know if he actually did do a whole lot for us.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that was a fun little era. I remember we brought in Hester. The next year we brought in Dwight Freeney for like a month.
Yeah. And then we released him. He goes and has like 5-6 sacks somewhere else.
Yeah. He was getting sacks here.
I know. I didn't like the release. I thought it was silly. You needed pass rush, and you're releasing one of your most consistent pass rushers. I don't care how old he is. It's like, is he getting it done? He's getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't stop the run. The guy's just so undersized at that point and old that he wasn't going to do that. But hey, 283, sign me up, man. I mean, I think Tavon Austin would at least be able to catch it and sure-handed. He wouldn't let stuff fall in front of him. So maybe he wouldn't be able to give you a lot as far as anything else outside of that. But it's definitely been a problem on this team, and it's hurting us in field position points, and it's hurting us on the turnover side of it. So it's something that's worthy of potentially being cleaned up. But to Brendan's point, he's got a lot of gray in that beard, and he's probably just not in the same kind of place he was when he was coming out well over 10 years ago now, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than what we have, I guess. So I would go for it, but I certainly wouldn't expect much because returning is a young man's game.
It is indeed. It is indeed a never dying out game here. It's probably going to be removed from the sport here at some point. Now, they're just limited to such a degree it might as well be removed when it is or isn't.
You can't get rid of punts though. Then the punters lose their value. Is Michael Dixon just going to be the world's most expensive kick holder?
I don't want to see it. Don't get me wrong, but they could just do that whole, well, it's the most dangerous thing, and we still have this many guys getting hit with they start throwing the statistics at you, and I hope they don't. I do like punt return game. I like it, the aspect of that football, but we've seen what they've done on the kick return side of it. They could do something very much the equivalent, and I think the punters are naturally doing this anyway, Brendon, because the guys are getting distance and height. That 64-yarder that DJ Dallas Fair caught had a good amount of verticalness to it as well. It wasn't just hit on one of those like line drives right at him kind of situations. So these guys they're getting better and better, man. Those legs are only going to get bigger and bigger to be able to get those punts out there deep and high to let the coverage unit gets down there and you just can't return it. So we head into the bye a little bit, Brendon. I think we've kind of picked through this game for the most part of what there is and what there isn't on. I will say, just defensively, Ryan Neal once again played a really good game, which was awesome to see. The cornerbacks, of course, played awesome. Tariq Woolen got another interception. He's got to be. Can you understand how it is that he's not your defensive rookie of the year at this point over a guy in Sauce that's got one interception to his 5?
Well, I mean, there are a few different reasons. Some of them valid, and some of them are not. Tariq has now given up a few touchdowns over the last month. I think he's given up 3 touchdowns in the last month. Now, I would say that, like, in the Cardinals game, he gives up a touchdown to Zach Ertz. That's literally the only play he gives up the whole game. And it was a 4-yard touchdown, or 6 yards, excuse me. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I would also say that, like, he gave up a semi-long reception to, I believe it was Godwin in this game. And, like, he had good coverage. Like, I don't know what else he's supposed to do there. It's just sometimes you're going to give up a catch.
Yeah.
But
Brady can still put the ball in some special places too, can he? I mean, he still has, from a ball location standpoint, he might have lost a few miles an hour on his fastball, but he can put it right where he wants to on a receiver.
Yeah. So you have, things like the New York media. You have the fact that Sauce Gardner was such a high draft pick. What was he, 4?
Something like that. 4.
Yeah. There are some things. He's got a cool name. He's got an easier name to make a big deal out of than Tariq Woolen, I think. Sauce Gardner is pretty good.
It is catchy. It is very, it's right there with that sort of Dion side of things. But you do think he has won the award if you're a voter on this, right? You wouldn't be giving it over to Sauce.
Yeah, it's 5 interceptions. That's other than, I think, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, that's leading the league, right?
That is, yeah. He's got one more extra he added this week, but yeah, you're right there, step for step as a rookie with him. And kid's going to be on a superstar run here, Brendon, is he not? I mean, he's on a climb to get to that spot here at some point. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but within the next couple of years, if can stay at the same rate, that is where Tariq Woolen is headed here.
Oh yeah. It would be shocking at this point to me if he doesn't get there.
Was there any other things within this game that stood out to you, worthy of discussion, or something that perhaps got stuck in your craw with this game?
Well, I'm kind of used to it at this point whenever we play on the road, but this was only technically a road game, so I wasn't happy with the way this game was officiated. There was that one bizarre sequence where on Brady's second touchdown pass, they threw a flag for offensive pass interference and then picked it up because, what was it? He didn't throw the ball where it was.
Yes.
There were a couple other. There was like a really obvious holding on one of the. I think it was who ran for the touchdown in this game. Was it Fournette or Rashad White?
Fournette, I think.
Yeah, on Fournette's one of his big runs. I think it was his touchdown run. There was a really obvious holding. Definitely some annoying things in that regard.
What about the intentional grounding from the end zone that didn't go called?
Oh yeah, there's another one.
Shelby Harris was freaking out after he threw that ball, because then that was almost Shelby's reaction as much as anything that made me take notice of it, because he was trying to get him to give him the safety call in it, because he thought it was just just threw the ball right there in the middle of the field. No one's around. Officials didn't even blink on that one. Didn't have a discussion or anything about it. Just next play.
Yeah, I wasn't terribly happy about that one. Other than that, though, I mean, it's just the silver lining is that you look at this team and the way they played in this game, they didn't really do anything well, except maybe Geno, when he had the opportunity to play well, did play fairly well. Like, they couldn't run the ball at all. They couldn't stop the run against a terrible running team. And by the way, the irony of it all, with all the two-man fronts that they used in this game, they got no pressure on Brady at all. So mission accomplished on that front is mission failed there as well.
One quarterback hit, no sacks.
Yeah. I don't even know if Darrell Taylor played. I mean, the only reason I know he played is because I've seen the snap chart. I honestly, Nwosu was pretty invisible. Now, obviously, that's not me trying to diminish what Nwosu's doing this year, but he was invisible in that game.
He was completely out. Brendon, I don't think he maybe had one tackle, or even if a tackle. Just there was no impact from him at all. And Taylor, they had in rotationally. So you're thinking, Brendon, all right, we have Taylor out of the run game. We've got him in now just as a pass rush specialist. Let him pin his ears back and go after Tom. But those guys didn't even make him uncomfortable back there in this game. Say nothing of the guys on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why I have to wonder how Shelby Harris got that 87 grade from PFF or whatever it was. Like, I know he had our only QB hit on Brady, but I was looking at that and going, okay, we couldn't stop the run at all. We couldn't get any pressure. Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, well, I'm this game for grade wise from the PFF has me scratching my head a little bit when I go and watch the 22 tape of Walker, and they have the offensive lineman being given these great run blocking grades. Meanwhile, Kenneth Walker is what your second worst graded offensive player by PFF in this game. So PFF's telling you, oh, theoretically they're telling you with those numbers, he's dancing too much. He's not picking his hole right, or just picking the right hole. But that's not what I saw. I mean, maybe you can ding him for not breaking a tackle here or breaking a tackle there, but it wasn't a matter of him, dancing too much. And so the PFF grades on this one were, to me, a little bit kind of wonky across the board. And it's just one more reason why, Brendon, you got to use that eye test in addition to that stuff, because it doesn't tell always the whole story at play.
Right. I thought there was one play. It was like a 3rd and 1 where he was dancing more than he needed to, and he ended up losing like 3 yards. But for the most part, there just isn't a whole lot there for him to do.
No, and there's a lot of mainly the big story with what I come away with looking at all the cut-ups of the runs, Brendon, is you had a lot of the offensive linemen all do their job, and then just one guy completely whiff on his job, and then that just completely blows the whole play up. Because you would have a situation where Seattle would have like a 6-man front, 5 offensive linemen, 1 tight end. Bucs would have a 7-man front to counter it. So they've got 1 unblocked defender already. And so Kenneth Walker already is going to have to break that tackle of that unblocked defender at some point on the play, even if the play is blocked up perfectly right. But then what happens is you have another play in addition to that who's slipping off his block at the defensive line, or Devin White shooting a gap. And now you have kind of 2 for 1 in that situation on Walker, where there's just no real way to go. If I go here, I break this tackle with White, but I'm going right into the hands of the unblocked defender, who I'm not going to have enough time to juke or get around or run around to that point, because he's right on top of it. They're sort of stacked up on him. That's what mainly, it wasn't one guy. It was like, this time it's Blythe against Hicks. Okay, this time it's this guy against that guy. And it was always kind of changing a little bit, but one guy would always seemingly just completely flip and lose his block, even as the rest of the guys are doing their job. And it was kind of enough to upend it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So often on those running plays, you are only as strong as your weakest link.
You are. And it's if a guy completely gets what's the equivalent of a whiff, which is what I would call that, Brendon, is a whiff at that point. It's something that can blow a play up. And you've got to at least get your hat on the hat at times and not get completely driven back. I mean, there's another play where you have Noah Fant blocking a defensive end. You're running the play over here. So you're thinking it's Carl Nassib he's going up against, and you're going, okay, Carl Nassib's the backside defender, so he's going to have to get all the way in pursuit to get over the running game. So Fant's just got to hold on for a second. Just hold on, Noah. But what happens at the snap is Carl Nassib puts him right on ice skates at the snap and almost throws him back into Walker and almost gets Walker tackled on the play, but again, completely upends the whole play off just this one guy losing his block right from the start and right from the jump. And so I don't think that's something they've done better at through the course of this year. It was just in this game, it was a particularly bad problem. Jacob Kessinger with a $5 donation. Thank you, Jacob. Very kind of you. It says the Hawks are 1-6 with that exact ref crew was a graphic they brought up during the game. I can't believe they would bring that up during the game on the telecast. They usually try to keep that stuff under wraps. Hope you muted.
It's like the Chris Paul thing. He has that one ref he never wins when that ref
Yeah.
The game. I can't remember which ref it is, but Chris Paul has this one ref he's a mortal enemy with. He's got like a 7% win rate to get with that ref. I'm trying to remember who it is, but it's like the same thing.
Those refs, they've got their little they got their kind of ways about him. Like you saw the DK play in this game, Brendan, where he had the flag called on him, and I thought that was exactly one of those plays where you go, "Oh, ref's in his feelings a little bit here." You know, DK barks at him a little bit, and then the ref pulls the flag on him. I just sometimes those guys get a little sensitive about stuff. They got to understand that like you got to remove your emotions for it. The game's not about you. It's not about who you are. I don't know if that's what this ref's crew are doing, but that Chris Paul situation is what brings that to mind with me a little bit. I don't know. Why are we bad with this crew? Do you think it's just is it just randomization and we just happen to be we flipped the coin 7 times and you know?
I mean, it's not a big sample size, admittedly, right?
Yeah. It's probably hard to take too much away from just 1 and 6.
And also the DK penalty didn't matter because Myers knocked it through all the same. And are we going to have to give Myers a record-breaking kicker contract at the end of this year? Is this where this is headed?
I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm really hoping no. But
there's too much fluctuation in performance from the kicking game to be giving guys 3-4 year deals, which is what it's going to probably command at that point.
I agree. But like, I mean, in Carroll's mind, he's going to say like, oh, I don't want to take the chance of another kicker, not recognizing that keeping Myers is a risk in and of itself. But I'm a little afraid that's where we're headed because he's having a pretty incredible year.
Yeah, the cost is going to be a 4-year, $5 million per deal. It's a 4-year, $23 million deal to bring him back. I just think I already thought $4 million was a little bit too high. And as great a season as he's given you in it'll be 4 years he's been there at that point, it's been too bad, too good. I think in his complete 4 years he's been here. So it's like, is that worth paying top end kicker money for that kind of performance? And I just don't think it is. And that's who he's been throughout the course of his career. He's had some really good years and he's had some down years. There's been that same fluctuation in Myers throughout his whole time. And so I'd rather just try to find, hell, I don't mind going the Dixon route on this, Brendan. If you want to get the best kicker in the draft in the 5th round or whatever, take that track with it. But no, don't pay the kicker big money anymore. We've got to learn our lesson with that. We did it with Hauschka. It wasn't really worth it. We tried to bring a couple other guys, wasn't really worth it. I'm not a fan of that one. Been bit many times by. Jacob Cussing with another $5 donation. Thank you for the double dono, Jacob. Very kind of you. I appreciate you, brother. Says Walker had 17 yards of 15. Walker had 17 yards of 15, which were after first contact. Dude was getting rocked all day. So 15 of those 17 yards, he had to get after first contact. And
silver lining, emergence of Ken Walker, the receiving threat in this game, though. That was nice.
It was nice. They did find a way to at least get him the ball in his hands if they couldn't get him to run the ball. But thank you for providing that, Jacob, because that does fit to what I'm seeing on the tape with him, which is if I'm a running back and I get the ball and I've got somebody right in my kitchen from the second I have the ball, you've got to kind of keep that in mind. Then when what he does with the play is he's trying to scramble to find a way around that. And I think people were a little bit quick to go, well, it's because he's dancing or because he's just not willing to put his nose up in there. I also think, Brendan, we got a little bit used to with the Marshawn Lynches and the Chris Carsons and the Thomas Rawls of these hammers at the running back position. That's not who Walker is. He is a guy that can run with some power. He is a guy that can run behind his pads and grind out some yards, but he's not that same type of running back. And some of this, and why I wanted to make this video, Brendan, was to put on display the fact you just got to, running backs come in all shapes and sizes and all types. And if the guy's effective and he's going to give you a 5+ yard per carry average, you got to take kind of the good with the bad on that at that point, in my opinion of things.
Yeah. And either way, I mean, he's 22 years old. He's a rookie. Like, even if he did make some mistakes in this game, it's part of the process.
Yeah. He'll learn. He'll get better. That's the scary part of this. He's already been really good and he's only going to get better with it. But thank you, Jacob. That's a great stat, man. I wasn't aware of that. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $2 donation. Says the 3 tight end set was non-existent in the first half. What are your guys' thoughts?
I don't think there's any way to make sense of that. It's just kind of weird. Like I said, I went through the snap counts. All 3 tight ends saw less usage in this game than they do usually. And it's only by a few snaps, but in a game where your offense only got like 52 snaps, a few snaps is significant. And the fact that we used 3 receivers so much, like I think Goodwin was on the field for all but 10 plays. Like that's a little bit. I don't think there's any way to really explain it other than that they saw something with maybe their cornerbacks that they liked. I don't know what it could have been, but yeah, I can't explain that one. All I can say is that I think it was a mistake, and I hope it doesn't happen again.
I wish I could add a lot more upon what Brendan just said with this, Kevin, but it's a little bit of a head scratcher that kind of defies explanation, because when you did start to use your tight ends in this game, you were effective with it. When you started throwing to them, it was good. You were finding some holes in space. You look at this Tampa Bay defense, it's not like it's a defense coming into this game that was really vulnerable in the back end of the secondary, and there's just all these points they're giving up across the board. In that they've been a good defense. So 18 points a game, I think, is what they're giving up. So to think that that's where there was this gaping wound that you could rip open from them, I think that was silly for them to look at it in that respect of things. And again, this would come down to me on your three tight end set has been unique to you. It has been devastating for how you've used it. It's one of those sets that I almost kind of don't care what you got defensively speaking. I'm going to trot this out and make you stop it, or prove to you stop it, and put you in the bind of, do you want to go base or do you want to go nickel? And then if it doesn't work, then you can adjust off it. But every single game, it should be a very key part of the game plan.
Absolutely.
So sorry I don't have a better explanation, Kevin, of why they didn't do it, because nothing on this running into this from a statistical standpoint or personnel standpoint spoke to the fact that you should go 3 wide receivers instead of 3 tight ends. I think they just got a little bit cute. Maybe they just thought Brady was going to put up a lot of points. They're going to have to like match him step for step or something, I guess. I don't know. But then even then, Brendan, they tried to run the ball as much as they did. So you go, okay, you're going 3 wide receivers. So that means you're trying to pass, but they came out the gate trying to run the ball so much in that first half. None of it just didn't make sense. It just didn't quite line up. Snail with a $5 donation. Thank you, Snail. Says the 49ers have a quarterback controversy. They just signed Jacob Eason. They're a Super Bowl team now. Oh my God. Could you imagine if Eason got in there and he starts throwing dimes all over the field, 75-yard throws?
Well, Shanahan could probably make it work.
He could find a way.
He made it work with Nick Mullins. Is there really that big of a difference between Nick Mullins and Jacob Eason?
I didn't hate Eason's preseason. Did you? I mean, when he was in there, he wasn't,
there were some really bad throws, but there's some really bad throws with Jimmy Garoppolo too, honestly. So
it's very true. And Garoppolo's not exactly setting this high water mark that you got to go hit if you're Eason. So hey, they may end up calling upon him. Though I think they have another quarterback option that they feel pretty good about. Yeah. They probably feel okay. I don't think Eason's going to get over the top of him. But I also saw a stat that Garoppolo is 10-2 in games where he does not throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah, that's one of the all-time weird ones. That's I guess that just sums up the Garoppolo experience.
That's why I saw it. I was like, that just sums it up. And that right there, it's like he's just hopped on in the back seat, and they're taking him for a ride, and he's getting all the benefits, kind of in that respect of things. But hey, he's getting him back to win again this year. So you can't argue with the fact the guy, he is a winner, Brendan. He's a winner. Okay. Say what you will about the guy, but he's a winner.
I love the say what you will saying.
I do too.
You always say it about like the really bad people, like say what you will about Ted Bundy. Yeah. Say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger. Like it's never a good thing.
He's got a cannon for an arm. Yeah, it's like, but maybe rapist. I mean, maybe. So I don't know on that one, but that's funny, Snail, that they did sign him, and good on Jacob Eason for staying in the league and holding on as much as he can. Maybe he can end up carving himself out a backup quarterback role somewhere.
Yeah, he's been on 3 teams now this year, right? Seattle, Carolina, and now Frisco.
That's right.
Okay.
And you can't knock it for moving on from Carolina. They're getting back Darnold and Baker, so it kind of eased him out of the door probably a little bit there. Put him on the practice squad, I'm guessing, before the Niners probably pilfered him.
I was having some fun with PJ Walker, though. I got to be honest. I'm a little sad about that one.
PJ, that throw he made on that Falcons game, man, that might be the throw of the year, on there. And that Jefferson catch of the year, no doubt, right? That Jefferson catch he made on the Buffalo Bills.
That might be the best catch of the decade.
It's got a strong argument, man. And I mean, it kind of does outdo the Odell one, because he's got to actually fight to catch that ball and pull it out of the grip of the defender that's right there with one arm for the defenders too. So that one might actually be more impressive when you really like think about it on that one. So All right, we've broken this game down. We're going to flush this game, Brendon. You're playing in Germany, 6:30 in the morning. You're in awful field conditions. You've got a weird, wonky game plan that just wasn't right kind of from the jump that left you sort of scrambling and try to get back in. This is not who the Seahawks team has been through the course of this year. So let's try as we can to flush this one away and put this away to bed a little bit. We head into this bye. You spoke about the fact the injury situation is as good as it is. I think you'd agree. We're in as good an injury situation as we've been in maybe 9-10 years here at this time of year.
It's pretty remarkably clean. Like, other than Jamal Adams
and
Penny. Yeah. Okay. Penny's. I mean, those two guys, not insignificant, but you do kind of have two potential surging stars here in Ryan Neal and Ken Walker, making you not miss those guys so much.
It is. And I mention this because, of course, too, it's been really you on the other opposite end of the scale at times of the injury situation, hasn't it, in some years, where you're looking at it like we just can't keep anybody healthy. This guy goes down, and then this guy goes down, and this guy goes down. This is a year that's very much different from that in recent years past, where guys are able to stay out on the football field and keep it up and keep it going, which can bode well, Brendon, for our hopes for the rest of this season. Sometimes you can just lose too many guys, and it's just too much of a setback, and you just can't overcome it at certain position groups, right?
Yeah.
They get decimated at times in the NFL because the rosters are so small.
Yeah. I was scared for Brooks for a second there, though, in this game.
I was too. You didn't have any answer. It was going to be Tanner Muse and Cody Barton if no Brooks was out there, which that gets scary really quickly, I think, in my opinion of things. With going into this bye, what does this team need to kind of look at? If you're looking as a team and how we're going to set this forward, what do we got to kind of hang our hat on? Where we got to bury our flag on with this team? Who are we? What are we going forward on the course of this year for the best success for this season, Brendon, to get that division title, to maybe even make some noise, God forbid, for a little bit of the bye action if we could?
I'm mostly just kind of interested to see what we do with Trey Brown, because that's something new for this team. But for the most part, I just want us to learn the right lessons from this Tampa Bay game, right? Because you've had now a lot of games to look at where you can say, okay, the defense played great in these games and they played really badly in these games. And it's not just random. The what you have done with your players and your personnel and your formation have kind of dictated the way your team has played. So hopefully for these last 7 games and whatever games you get after that, you've learned those lessons and you've realized what works and what doesn't work. And I hope I don't see another game this year where we go back to the stuff that just plain wasn't working, like the 2-man fronts, like the heavy Cody Barton packages, and more Josh Jones on the field. As weird as it is, because Josh Jones is kind of a terrible football player, having him out there has actually worked very well for this defense. And you offensively lean on what you have that nobody else does. And as long as we do lessons, I think we're good.
Do you think you're okay with Cody Barton a little more on the football field? Because we talked about that situation, like I talked about, where you have a team, let's say, that goes to 3 wide receivers, which would be nickel for you with 2 linebackers on the field. Do you go for Ryan Neal and trust him in that space of Cody, or do you lean more into that place of saying run the 3-4, but then you can have Cody on the field when you've got the pure 3-4 being run, because you can trust in him being cleaned up a little bit more, not having to take on those second level blocks as much?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good point. When you have the 3 down linemen, the main problem with Barton is that he gets blocked and then he just gets blasted like 8 yards back into the secondary.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point, because you look at Barton and you go, he's fast, like he can move.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the fastest linebackers in the league. We saw him finally make a play in coverage in this game. He had an interception, maybe the only interception he'll ever get in his career.
And a legitimate one. Legitimate.
Yeah.
He had to drop back in space, read the eyes. It wasn't just sort of like a misthrown ball or the Brady just completely didn't absolutely see him. He read the eyes and went to the play, went to the spot. Mm-hmm. I think that's it. I don't want to see him on the field, Brendon. If you can find a way to keep him off of it, do it. If there's an opportunity to run nickel out there or dime out there, get Neal and get Josh Jones, I'm with you. Do that. But if you are fit up where they do run a little bit of a heavier personnel grouping out there on that line, and you got to bring them out there, just no more wonky for 2-man fronts. No more of it. It's not helping. It's completely just upending this team, especially in the run game. And I think, Brendon, you're going to see teams attack as we move into the future in the running game, even those teams that don't run the ball well, to see and test and probe Seattle a little bit to see is this where they're actually vulnerable? Is this the way to get to their defense at the end of the day rather than trying to pass on them? So it'll be up to the Seahawks to figure out if they can stop this up or not, because teams are going to lean into it. Offensively, it would be nice to see, I think you said, maybe mentioned a little more of the 3 tight end looks a little more consistently. They've had so much success with it. I'd like to see them lean even a little bit more into it, into the future of this year. I think that puts a lot of teams into a bind that they can't get out of necessarily. And I don't think they've exploited as much as they could. This last game being obviously a recent example of that.
Right.
Would you rather just keep it more into like a, little taster's choice, a little sample platter like they've kind of used through the first part of this year? Or would you say to lean into it as more of a strength?
I think at this point you kind of need to lean into it because you're not developing the receiver depth that you were maybe hoping this year because Eskridge has regressed, if anything. And you've also kind of got I don't know what's going on, but Walker sometimes feels like he's our only running back. Like Homer barely played in this game, and DJ Dallas did not play as a running back at all. Like we basically gone from the 3-headed Cerberus to a one, just a dog. Like
the other 2 heads got cut off, and the other one's looking around like, what happened to everybody?
I think we had 52 snaps in this game on offense, and Walker had 45 of them. Yeah, that's not great.
No, it's not great, especially when you have a guy like Homer who has been so good as a third down kind of back. You'd wonder. I know we did work Walker a little more of the ball out of the backfield in this one. I think he had a drop as well, though, too. So it would be nice to maybe work him in. I do think you've got to lean into, another item you bring up with this that we have to lean into too, is we can't overuse Walker in this year. It can't just become, let's grind this rookie out in his first year. You do have 2 capable running backs behind him who can get the job done, who've shown they can get the job done. Maybe easing out the load a little bit as we go along this year in the hopes of having him fresh if you can get into the playoffs and to be that difference maker and not be completely worn down at that point. Or God forbid, as happened in recent years, when you've used guys like this too much, you get them broken before the year ends. And you're now just stuck with Travis Homer and DJ Dallas and maybe making a call to Marshawn or something at that point. Who knows? Snail with a $2 donation. Thank you, Snail. I do appreciate all the donos. It says Jacob Eason's better than Trey Lance.
I mean, your best ability is your availability, right?
It is indeed. I mean, you got to say that about it. And Trey can't stay healthy out on the field here so far early on. That was a tough injury, though. Shanahan kind of sold him on that one a little bit. Just a little bit. Talk about just 2 different quarterbacks. One guy really with the legs, one guy strictly with really the arm. We'll see on Trey Lance, Snail. We'll see with him, man. I think the jury's still out on him. He hasn't had a lot of a chance to really show what he is or who he is at this point. One thing is for sure, the Niners are married to him as they go forward here. I don't think they have a clear way out of it to go find another quarterback this offseason. So unless they bring back unless Gropp comes back for one more turn.
Matt Ryan.
Yeah, you think he would go for Matt Ryan?
We're going to reunite Kyle Shanahan and Matt Ryan.
I'm licking my chops as a Hawk fan if they go sign Matt Ryan. I ain't scared of that at all. Matt Ryan's done. We watched that game. That guy's done. I don't want to hear about it. Like, he's done. It's done as toast. Give me another year of age and he'll be even further down the hill on that side of it. Well, anything else that you would like to see implemented in? More trick plays, more fly sweeps, more bubble screens?
I don't have a burning desire for any of it. I mean, right now we have a top 5 offense. So most of what we're doing is working quite well. So I'm not looking to change anything radically. If you want to throw some stuff in there like trick plays, bubble screens, jet sweeps, sure. But I also have to recognize the fact that the results have been pretty impeccable this season. We're talking about, I think we only had a top 5 offense once in the entire Russell Wilson era, 2015. And here we are with the top 5 offense. Like, something is clearly working.
Don't break it if it's working, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However that saying goes, and that's definitely what you apply there. And I think it's very similar to the defensive side of the ball, Brendon. But go with what's worked. What was it that you did in those games that made you one of the best DVOA defenses in the league for 4 straight weeks? And lean into that. Don't go outside of it. Don't get cute. Understand that's the strength of this particular ball club and what you've done. I think defensively, you've got some limitations. And so you've got to lean into what puts you in favorable positions. You're not going to out schematic people. You don't have difference makers across the board, especially on the defensive line. You're just kind of getting by, I feel like. So lean into what you do right, lean into what you do well, and don't try to get too cute with it, especially with these damn 2-man fronts, Brendon. I'm so overseeing these 2-man fronts. Those teams offensively will attack it. I think the Broncos did in this game, or the Buccaneers did in this game, Brendon, is I think they saw those 4-man fronts, and Brady went to his little look at my head, check my head. We're going to go with a run play here because he knew that they could attack, and it was just easy yards to go be had, even for a Buccaneer team that can't run block worth a damn, really, even for that type of team. Kevin Mullen with a $2 donation. Thank you, Kevin. Says, I'd love to see a fullback trap with Disley and a 3 tight end set. Ooh. Well, they have given Disley a little bit of a give before here this year so far as sort of it was as a tight end, but as a little pitch play on the 3rd and short. So they have shown a willingness to kind of do something like that. I'm open to it. I'm down for it.
I mean, at some point they're going to catch on to what you're doing. So you got to have more tricks in your bag. That's how the NFL works.
And would anybody see it coming? If you were goal line and you had Disley lined up as a fullback and then your other 2 tight ends on the other side of the lines, on each side of the edge of the line, would anybody defensively be thinking it's going to be going to Disley there? I don't think so. So I like where your head's at, Kevin. Let's do it, man. There's a good idea. That's definitely one to kind of catch him off guard. But yeah, man, we're in a great spot here, Brendon, with this team. Let's acknowledge, just as we kind of finish and wrap up through with this, nobody thought this team was going to be where it is. I think Hawk fans have got to be absolutely encouraged about the state of this team. We're beyond sample size of the season at this point, Brendon. We can, I think, firmly understand, or at least feel like we're in relatively good hands, both with Schneider and Carroll. Is that a fair point to say at this point from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I think they've done it's not easily earned trust for you. I know that. It wasn't been for me either, but I mean, how can you not look at this team with all that's gone on over the past 6 months and not say, okay, there is enough here to be shown? Just like I think there was enough to be shown for us to be leaning in the direction of wanting to see change. And we wanted to initially see change at the start of the season. I think in the same way, we've seen the data and information to move us in this direction. And we didn't know as well some of the background stuff at play, I think, in the dynamic with Wilson and Carroll there, and the Schneider and Carroll dynamic, and some of those things that have changed along this path that have freed up some of the bad decision-making that occurred in the past.
Yeah. I don't think any logical person could come to a different conclusion at the moment. Like the proof is in the pudding. The results are too good to say anything else. Yeah.
To be this long in the season, to be this good as a team is just, it's, and again, the other side of it and what's happened on the other ends of it have kind of confirmed this. So feel very good about this team. We got another donation here from the Snail. Thank you for the $5 donation, Snail. Thank you for all the donos, you guys, and you too today, Snail, for all the donos. What do you think about drafting a tight end in the first and carrying 4 tight ends next year so we can run more 13 without injury worries?
I'm not a fan. I don't mind carrying 4 tight ends, but I don't think you need to draft one in the first round.
Yes, I agree with this, Snail, where I think going first round would be a little bit of a tough pull on that. You're spending significant money already on Disley and Fant. Not to mention Parkinson's probably not going to be cheap after this year as he is right now. It's going to get a little more expensive for him.
He's still on the rookie deal next year, so it's not going to be that much.
So he's leaving his 3rd year this year, right?
Right.
So once he leaves his 3rd year, they go to that 4th year option, which I think then does go to like $3.5-4 million. So it's not cheap, but then you think about you're spending $9 million on Fant and you're spending another $8 to $9 million on Disley.
Yeah, that's significant.
And now we're putting that all together. I mean, it's $20+ million in your tight end position. Can you afford another 3 or 4 if you were to get a guy in the first or second? Yeah. No. I like where you're at, Snail wise, of thinking about carrying the 4th tight end, but me and Brendon were just talking about the bind they found themselves in this Buccaneer game, where you wanted to have it 1 extra defensive tackle, but you needed the extra wide receiver. If you carry that extra 4th tight end, if you're not planning maybe having him active game day, that's one thing, but that's one less maybe receiver that you then have on the field. The only way this could work for me is if you can find the hybrid guy, a guy that can be both a wide receiver and a tight end to really then be able to fit into doing it that way. Absent that, I'm not sure if you could pull off grabbing 4 tight ends on a roster.
Agreed.
Well, cool. Well, folks, do me a favor if you can for me, please. Hit that like button as you, got shocked there. Jesus, a few volts right through the ear. Hit that like button for me if you guys can for me. It does help us out, grow out here. I'm getting on the pace here, Brendon. I'm about 90 away here from 10,000 subscribers. So
All right.
if you're not subscribed as well, please do get subscribed, as we are a mere 90 away and we're getting closer and closer to that mark. I'm trying to match what you're doing, Brendon. Just trying to, get to step for step there with you. So please do that, folks, as well as also, don't forget this, go over there to Seahawks Brendon Nelson. That's the name of his channel over here on YouTube. And please subscribe to him as well. We're going to be going a little bit until next week because we have a bye this week. So me and Brendon are going to come back next Thursday on his channel, and then we'll be doing a bunch of shows on his channel to kind of make up, because he's been in the middle of doing some, I think you're doing house sitting, just doing a new setup over there a little bit. So we'll get back over onto this, kind of balance this off over on his side of it. So be on the lookout for that, folks. Next Thursday, we'll be doing some shows here this week as well on my side, still here to come. We got another donation here from Eric99. Thank you, Eric. I really do appreciate it. He says, hey, BNB, ain't wait for next year when our rookies get a real grip. Oh, can't wait. Sorry. So can't wait for next year when our rookies get a real grip on the offensive and defensive schemes. Thoughts?
I mean, just logically speaking, a vast majority of players get better when they enter their second year versus their first year, right? Like, it's very rare. I remember Blake Griffin was kind of like this, where his best year was his rookie year. It was actually kind of spooky. Every year after the rookie year, he fell off by like 9%. It was bizarre. I think there was a Sidney Wicks. He was a NBA player from like the 80s who was kind of like that as well. But for the most part, as you approach your physical prime of like 26, 27, 28, you're going to keep getting better. So that is the only assumption to make, right? Like, imagine if a guy like Charles Cross peaked in his rookie year. That would be bizarre.
Yeah. It's just not something you see very often in football, Brendon. And if you do see it, it's going to be maybe the position like a receiver who can come in and be very productive right from the jump, and then maybe injuries start to rob him or something comes. Usually there's an explanation in football for the drop off. First, the basketball reference that you made, or even I think you see in baseball too at times on some guys that'll just suddenly go good and then things just go bad, and they go wrong. I will say the interesting part that stands out to me about your question with this, Eric, is it's Coach Carroll's thoughts on this that really kind of ring in my head. And what he said about this is, and he had no reason not to say this. He wasn't saying just other than being asked about it. He says, the players, when they make their biggest leap, when they make their biggest jump in their development, it is from year 1 to year 2, according to Coach Carroll. And it makes a lot of sense in that respect of things. So when you're starting 6 rookies this year and knowing that they're going to take the biggest jumps of their career, most likely into that second year, then you're absolutely right. You should be excited then for the prospect of what next year will bring, because you're going to start to get the fruits of those benefits in a big way from this year, from them taking their lumps right now. A guy like Boye Mafe stands out to me. All the snaps he's getting in the run game, how he's working on his game, I think he's going to come along in a big way next year, Brendon. I really do. I'm very high on this kid. And that's going to show itself more than it is this year, where you're seeing him not as much a factor as far as a pass rusher goes. He's kind of here and there will show his moments, but he's really just been a run defender only. So yes, you're going to see it across the board, Eric, and all the guys that are getting these starts and getting this time out on the football field. It should get you excited, but it's also part of what informs me from my standpoint of saying, this is why I want to go Geno. This is why I want to go to getting to a place next year where we look at this team as an elite team next year and shoot for that mark. Not look 3 years, 2 years down the line, but go right now, because those guys are going to be able to be ready to go right now.
Yeah. I believe that, how old is Mafe? Isn't he one of the younger ones as well? One of the younger rookies?
Relatively speaking, yeah. I think he's 23. So he's not a 21-year-old guy. I think he's a 23er, but not an older rookie necessarily.
And also he's probably mentally younger than 23 because he's played so little football in his life.
100%. He's going to be a little bit rawer on that side of things. And so there's a little bit more of the opening for that development to be even a bigger leap, especially Brendon with him. It's the raw tools you have there, the size, the 10-yard split, the fast 40, the length. He's got all that you could want as far as if you're designing it in sort of a lab, so to speak, as far as the prerequisites for the position. It's now just about getting him some seasoning and a little bit more of those snaps to learn the game along. But he's taken some big steps forward, even off of his college tape, Brendon. We've talked about those false steps that he used to take off the line of scrimmage, no longer taking those false steps. He's cleaned that part up in his game. So he's shown an ability to improve already out the gate just from what we saw in college, a little bit like Tariq Woolen and how he cleaned up his bad footwork as well. We've got some hard workers in some of these young guys, which is only going to help them take those steps forward into the future.
Yep. And I can't wait.
I can't wait either, man. We're in for a very, very fun run of Seahawks football over the next couple of years, folks. So get ready to get very excited about this team. Get ready to get back to an elite status very quickly if we don't already get there this year. And again, just one reason why I feel in such good hands with this front office and coaching staff as we currently stand. And it is awesome place to be in that respect of things with all the questions we had at the start of the offseason and where we thought this potentially could be heading into the future. Brendon, I really do appreciate you as always for coming in here on the Hawks Nest channel and doing these shows as we've done kind of back to back, even though I know you're kind of in the middle of moving back and forth. So thank you for that. Very much appreciative on your side of it. Again, we will be back on your channel next Thursday at 8:00 Pacific Standard Time. So folks, please do get subbed over there to Brendon's side of the channel. Please do again, hit that like button for me on your way out the door for me, folks. But other than that, as we go into this bye and we still sit in first place, your first place Seahawks, Brendon. That sounds good. Say that for me once. I want to hear you say it. The
first place Seattle Seahawks.
Still. Yeah, that's still. Not oh, they just got to first place. We're still there. We're still up in that spot. Feels very good to say we're going through the bye in first place. Get hyped about this team, folks. Don't look to next year. Look to right now because we have this season right now in our grasp. Open NFC conference. It's anybody's game at this point. We just got to get hot at the end of the year. And Coach Carroll does tend to get his teams playing at their best near the end of the season. Few injuries, bye week at the right time, Brendon. Not a tough schedule set in front of us. It's right there for the taking, is it not?
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. Well, let's go get it, Seahawks fans. Let's get this. Let's see what we can do this year. Let's go shock the world. You never know. That's the beauty of football is you never know every year. It's unpredictable. I appreciate you, Brendon. I appreciate all of you guys out there for tuning in. But before we leave, please just one little thing, just one little tiny thing as we head in the bye and you start to, forget for a moment about football. Don't forget. Remember at the forefront of your mind and don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.